LawCall is provided in the public interest by Timberlake, League & Brooks, which pays an advertising fee to the station.
This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviet. Tonight we're answering your questions about bankruptcy. It is a scary word, but for people who are facing insurmountable levels of debt, it may be the only realistic path back to a normal life. How do you know when it's time to take that step, though? Well, there were over 500,000 people that filed for bankruptcy in the United States last year. What do you need to know? Okay, are you going to lose your home? Are you going to lose your car? Is your credit going to be ruined, and for how long? How do you go about filing? Tonight's guest is going to be able to answer those questions because he's been doing this for more than 3 decades. Getting us started just with the basics of bankruptcy. Michael Timberlake's here from Timberlake, League & Brooks. Okay, bankruptcy can do certain things, but you can't bankrupt out of everything. Where do we start?
Well, so basically you have 2 different types of bankruptcies that most consumers use. There's a Chapter 7, which will wipe away all your debt, and a Chapter 13, which helps you reorganize your debt and basically get you out of trouble if you can't make payments. But bankruptcy in general can help you with credit card debt, foreclosure of your home. It can help you if your car's being repossessed or has been repossessed, and it can help you if there's garnishments against your wages. Those are things that can immediately be assessed during the bankruptcy process and help you out.
What can we not get rid of,
Yeah,
though?
this is the question that a lot of people say is, well, what are the real problems? Well, child support alimony, that is not dischargeable in bankruptcy. Student loans are not dischargeable in bankruptcy. Tax debt is not dischargeable in bankruptcy. We live in the personal injury world. Punitive damages, if you get hit with a punitive damage verdict and to punish you, cannot discharge that in bankruptcy.
And no surprise that the government's not going to give up your tax debt. No, they're not.
Absolutely.
So we've got a great expert who's with us tonight and been doing bankruptcy law for more than 3 decades.
Yeah, we've got our friend Ron Siskus, and he's at Bonds, Bodas, Siskus and Tanner. He's been doing it for about 35 years, and
about as long as you've been.
Well, yeah. So we've aged well together. How's that?
That's right.
And you also do a podcast, so if people are interested in the law, if you love this show, then you love lawyers. You have a podcast where you interview lawyers.
I do, and it's not a law-related podcast.
Okay.
It's lawyers, kind of how they got into the law and, from whence they came. And it's called Next Lawyer Up Podcast, and it's at our website, bondandbodas.com. And you've been on it.
I've been on it. My partners have been on it. It's a good time.
It's
and
very
let me say
interesting.
Sharon's invited.
I would like. I'm an introvert. I know I do this for a living, but I'm an introvert. But,
it's
it's
a lot
fascinating.
of fun.
It's one of the top 45 podcasts in the nation.
I think it's number 30 out of the top 45 legal podcasts. On the internet. So
bankruptcies are up right now significantly.
So I think I just read a statistic the other day. I think they're up by about 15% year over year.
Gee.
And just our sense is they're increasing. I mean, people are struggling, and you brought up an interesting point, Sharon. It's a bad word. People hear it. It's in a lot of ways it helps people dig out, and it helps people jumpstart their credit. There's a lot of good that can come from it.
It's intended to give you a fresh start.
Yeah,
give everybody a chance.
That's right.
We had this email question from Martin. Martin had said, I lost my job and I've been using my savings to stay afloat for the last few months. Our debt is over $80,000 in credit cards, medical bills, and various loans. What should we be doing as far as paying bills and gathering documents to prepare for a possible bankruptcy in the next few weeks? Where do we start?
You got to pick and choose, right?
Right. But probably, certainly stay current on your home, the hard items, home, vehicles, that type of stuff. With the credit card debt, they really should talk to a lawyer right away. Let's see what they've been paying, what their assets are, what their expenses are and that type of thing. But they can be helped. So they don't necessarily need to wait. But again, if someone asked me, where should my priorities lie, it would be on the important stuff of your home, whether it's rent or your mortgage, and of course your vehicles.
We've got callers with questions. We've got Jeremy on the line with a question. Jeremy, thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
I've heard different things about bankruptcy. If you file either chapter of bankruptcy, do you still pay your debts, or do they just put you on a plan to minimize them?
Yeah, that's a good. So there's two types.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's a Chapter 7 we talked about and a Chapter 13.
Right.
So
as you
what's the
mentioned,
difference?
Michael, yeah, Chapter 7 is the straight bankruptcy. Notably, that's the law to get rid of unsecured debt, credit card debt, signature loans, that type of thing. Chapter 13 is the debt consolidation. That's a form of payback type of bankruptcy where, if you're behind on your mortgage, you can catch up a mortgage payment. If you're behind on your vehicles, back taxes, student loan debt, the stuff that you've got to pay, that can restructure a repayment plan for that. So every situation is different. Why you would do what you do is kind of dependent upon your own situation. Do you have assets? Do you have a lot of equity in your house? Is the car about to be repossessed? That type of thing.
And so if it's a Chapter 7, it totally wipes away your debt, but the negative to that is if you do have equity in your house, you're probably going to lose that.
Yeah, so you'd want to be careful going in. You'd want to, so in Alabama, so even though bankruptcy is a federal law, Alabama says we're going to use Alabama exemptions. Unlike if you lived in Florida or Texas, you have 100% homestead exemption. Alabama generously protects its constituents and says you can protect $18,800 worth of your equity in your house.
Oh, gee.
Now, if you're a married couple and you're both on the mortgage, you can double that. So it's 37 and some change. Personal property exemption in Alabama is $9,400, and that's all in. That's cash in the bank, clothing, vehicles that are paid for. So you just want to be careful of what you're doing, because you don't want to go in unknowing to a bankruptcy and then, whoops, I'm going to lose my house, I'm going to lose my car, when you weren't planning on that.
Right. And Chapter 13 can kind of
Protect all
avoid that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's kind of the purpose a lot of times with the 13, because we have such a low homestead exemption. And the crazy thing is, this is way high compared to what it was about 6 years ago.
Oh no, this is good.
This is great. It used to be $5,000. Double it for a married couple if you're
Wow.
both. And since COVID, when real estate prices have increased, we see a lot more equity issues. And then, how do you derive equity, or how do you determine what the value is? Well, there's the tax appraised value, which is a public document published, by a county. But what does Zillow say? So if the tax appraisal says X, if Zillow says Y, you potentially have a problem. So it's something you want to consider.
Okay.
Right.
We've got Richard on the line with a question. Richard, thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
If I file Chapter 7 bankruptcy, is my home and my 401k protected?
Chapter 7.
Yeah, so that's what we kind of talked about. Your equity in your home is probably not going to be protected in a Chapter 7. What about your retirement accounts?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, so doing that in the reverse order, retirement is protected. If it's in a defined, retirement plan, like a 401k or IRA, protected, no matter how much is in there. So that's good news. But be careful. We've run into folks where if you get an inherited IRA, since there's so much wealth that's been being transferred over these last several years, if you get an inherited IRA or 401k, that's not protected because you didn't put that money in. So that can be exposed. Remember I said the personal property exemption in $9,400, that counts against it. So yeah.
It sounds like people need to meet with somebody to figure this out.
Just to know to know what their issues are.
How do they afford a bankruptcy lawyer if they're having money problems already? How do you pay for it?
Yeah, we do it over time. I mean, generally a Chapter 13 plan, the payment is part of your payment, the attorney's fee, and most attorneys offer free consultations. That's kind of the culture here.
Okay.
So you can at least kind of know what your start point is.
Okay.
And I will say this, I've got a free book for anyone who's interested.
Okay.
Go to our website. You can get our book that covers a lot of this information.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Everything I know I learned about bankruptcy, I learned in your book.
We've got Aubriana with a question on the line. Thanks, Aubriana, for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yes, I would like to know, can I include my student loans in a bankruptcy?
Student loans. Okay, a lot of people have got big dollar student loans. And
right, and it's a mess in our country, and we see so many folks that have issues with student loans. So per se non-dischargeable under the bankruptcy code, but there is an exception. It's called undue hardship, if it poses an undue hardship on you. But it doesn't come easy. You file your bankruptcy, and if you want to try this undue hardship, you have to file what's called an adversary proceeding. It's a separate lawsuit in bankruptcy against a student loan company. a very difficult standard. So you have to show that you cannot maintain a minimal standard of living for you and your dependents while making the student loan payment. You have to show that the standard or the problems you're having will exist for the majority of the student loan repayment period, whether that's 20 or 30 years. And you have to show that you've made a good faith effort to repay the student loans. Nationwide, it's called the Bruner test, Bruner versus New York higher education. Tough standard. Most courts in the country honor or look at this or use this as a standard. It just doesn't happen often or easily.
Yeah, doesn't sound like you're going to get that one. Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back answering more of your questions about bankruptcy tonight.
LawCall is provided in the public interest by Timberlake, League and Brooks, which pays an advertising fee to the station.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call. Your rights, your calls, live. Presented by the Tennessee Valley's award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm, Timberlake, League and Brooks. Featuring the knowledge and experience of Attorney Michael Timberlake, Attorney Will League, Attorney Heath Brooks, Attorney William Maservi. And hosted by broadcaster and family law attorney Sharon Doviet. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back. Tonight we're talking about bankruptcy. We've got Michael Timberlake from Timberlake, League and Brooks, who does personal injury cases, and we've got Ron Sixtus from Bond, Bodus, Sixtus, and Tanner, who does bankruptcy all day, every day, and veterans benefits too. So we have different shows on that one.
Yeah.
You had a question for him to start off.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of military personnel, a lot of government personnel, DoD personnel. And I know that one of the major issues when you're getting a security clearance is they want to know what your finances are, because that's where you might be susceptible to influence. Does filing bankruptcy, how does that intertwine with the security clearance?
Sure, and it's a big deal here. I've been doing security clearance work since I left the Army, or since I was in the Army, but finances are the #1 reason why people are denied clearances or have clearances revoked, but it's also the easiest one to fix. So there's a directive, it's called DoD Directive 5220.6, instituted in 1992, controls everything about a clearance, whether it's criminal behavior, drugs, alcohol, finances. It's under Guideline F under this. I know I'm getting a little into the weeds, but very important, especially in our area, right, for clearances. And what the government doesn't want to see is debts that are hanging out there. They want you to address it. And I always tell folks, I've got a book, Security Clearance Issues, Problems, Denials, and Revocations out there, but the reality is they want to know you're dealing with your debts. With a clearance, I'm not too keen on a Chapter 7. In some circumstances, it's okay. What the government likes, it's just kind of human nature. Hey, do an attempt to pay back your debt. So if you pay it back through a 13 in full or in part, I'm better with that. And also, if you have multiple bankruptcies in a lifetime, make sure the last one is a 13, where you're trying to pay back as much as possible. So the point is, or work out your debts, but have the debts resolved one way or the other.
Okay. We've got Marie on the line with a question. Thanks for calling, Marie. What's your question tonight?
If you are married and one spouse both got bankrupt, but the other one don't, but they still have loans together, how would that work?
Yeah, so that's a good question. If you've co-signed with your spouse on something, and can one person file bankruptcy, the other one not?
No, because it rides to the other person. In a situation like that, sometimes people will talk to us, and if they just want to file, that's fine. We ask the question: are all the debts just in your name, no spouse, or you don't have any co-signers? Then that's fine. We can just work with that one person, but. Certainly you can file. No one can be forced to file bankruptcy, but if you're on the debt and the spouse files, then you've still got a problem.
Yeah, because I guess if the spouse files, typically the way the debt would be, the other spouse would get the entirety of the debt.
Yeah.
He's not going to be able to discharge half of it.
It's joint and several liability. Sure.
Right.
We've got Linda on the line with a question. Linda, thanks for calling. What's your question tonight? Linda?
Bankruptcy, and I was just wondering how long this will stay on my record, and when it comes off, what is my credit score going to be?
Sure.
Okay.
And how do I build it up?
Okay.
So great question. You mentioned earlier at the outset, this is going to be a credit killer, right? Here's what I tell folks. If your credit's perfect, yeah, bankruptcy will kill your credit. If you're behind late payments, lawsuits, garnishments, judgments, there's nothing bankruptcy does that makes the credit worse. So the law we're talking about is the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and that's the federal law that controls everything that can or can't be on a credit report. So bankruptcy, for instance, will appear on your credit report for a period of 10 years from the date of filing.
Okay.
Compare that to bad credit, negative credit, late payments, whatever, as we all hear. That's on your credit report for a period of 7 years. This is under the FCRA, the law I was just talking about. And it says that it'll be there for a minimum of 7 years, but the 7-year period doesn't begin until the date of last activity, which is they either charge it off or you pay it in full.
Oh.
So if it took you 5 years, 6 years for it to be charged off or paid in full, then the 7-year period begins.
Okay.
Going back to bankruptcy, so I was in the military. When you're in the military, and I like telling this to folks, when you're in the military, you want your discharge. When you're in bankruptcy, you want your discharge. Once you get your discharge, it's Katie bar the door. Your credit's it will improve with light speed. And I don't say that lightly. One last thing, if you have filed for bankruptcy, I have a blog post out there. It's called How to Improve Your Credit After Bankruptcy. There are certain steps to take under the FCRA. The FCRA is a complicated kind of I won't say what I really think of it. It's kind of a crazy law, but there are certain defined steps you have to take if something's on your credit report, and it's all at this blog post.
And that's on your website,
Yeah, it
and
sure
we'll
is.
remind you again at the end of the show. We've got Clark on the line with a question. Clark, thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
My wife and I were just revisiting our will, and we want to be as fair as we can about everything, but our daughter is kind of in a lot of debt. And if we do split everything between the two, would her debt in any way have an effect on our son's inheritance?
That's a good question. So
It wouldn't affect the son, but there could be a real problem for the daughter. So when you inherit property, say you file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, any inheritance within 6 months of your bankruptcy discharge, remember when I said it's over, that comes into play.
Oh.
So that could go to your creditors. When you're in a Chapter 13, an inheritance it's a windfall, right? So that could go to your creditors. That's something to be aware of. One thing, kind of along these same lines that we see people do, as folks get older, you want to kind of pass stuff down.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the house in my daughter's name.
Yeah.
Well, daughter's got debt. Now your house or my house that I just put in my daughter's name could get attacked by her creditors.
Even during your lifetime?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
While my house that I was trying to do a good
Yeah.
thing, that could be a real problem.
Okay.
or if there's a divorce,
Yeah.
the same
Oh,
thing
yeah.
can
Yeah.
happen. So it's
Yeah.
really, passing large property down is something
I'd
you
probably
want to
wait
think through.
till you're gone.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. We've got a question from Mike. Mike, thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
I wanted to ask in terms of home foreclosure and bankruptcies, are you required to file bankruptcy if you foreclose on your home and vice versa?
Yeah, so I guess if you're behind, your mortgage company forecloses on your home, there are options other than bankruptcy, right?
Well, so Alabama's the quickest state in the union to foreclose. Like Florida, it's like a 2-year process,
Oh,
judicial
wow.
process.
Wow.
We're a non-judicial foreclosure state. 6 weeks start to finish, and you lose your house.
Wow.
They got to publish it in the newspaper 3 times, send you a certified letter. If you blow that deadline, so that let's say foreclosure date is today, and I have not filed a Chapter 13 to stop the foreclosure, it's gone. You can't get it back. So it's a real mess. But yeah, you can stop it with, you can stop a foreclosure with a bankruptcy, notably a Chapter 13. But boy, I hate, and we see a lot of folks who wait till the day before, and I'm like, we're too late.
Yeah, you got to get it,
You gotta
stick
get
on that.
Yeah.
Get on it.
Right.
We've got an email question from Earl. Earl had said, I was sued last year and there's a lien on my house. Will the lien be wiped away if I file bankruptcy? And does it matter what kind of lien? Does it matter where the lien's coming from?
That's a good question. If you're so if you have a judgment against you and somebody files a lien against your property for that judgment, is that going to be a situation that's going to be a problem?
So here's the problem. Liens are now attached. You get a judgment lien, it attaches to your real estate. And so if you have a house, even if you have a mortgage, attaches to the real estate. They're so insidious, it's probably the worst thing we deal with. Judgment liens in Alabama are good for 10 years. They grow at a contract rate of interest or 12%, whichever is more, every year, renewable for another 10. And they sit there, so like time bombs. And a lot of people don't even know about them. They don't have to tell you they recorded a lien. Here's the thing, if you file bankruptcy, a lien stays, even if you list the debt. You have to specifically avoid the lien. It's a separate process, not a difficult process, but a process nonetheless in bankruptcy to avoid the lien. And if you don't, then it sits there and it continues to grow.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Sounds complicated. We've got a question from Cindy. Cindy had emailed, I let my mother have 2 credit cards in my name about 5 years ago. She completely messed up my credit. I know that it's my name on the cards and I'm responsible, but I don't have the money to pay them. What can I do? If you let somebody else use the cards, can you plead that?
Well, same issue. I mean, it is your debt. Now, could you file a fraud complaint and
on mom?
On mom and file a police report? Maybe. I don't see people do that. They generally will end up filing bankruptcy and just chalk it up and not give anyone else a card.
Now, would both mom and daughter have to file, or just the daughter?
Just like if I gave one of my boys, made him an authorized user on my card,
right?
It's my responsibility.
It's yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
We'll take a break. Be right back. More about bankruptcy.
LawCall is provided in the public interest by Timberlake, League and Brooks, which pays an advertising fee to the station.
If you didn't get your questions answered, here's how to get in touch with Ron Sixtus with Bond, Botus, Sixtus, and Tanner. The number is 256-539-9899. Also check out www.bondinbotus.com. He's also got, so we've got the podcast, which is Next Lawyer Up, interviewing lawyers, learning about lawyers. There's also the blog, which has information on all kinds of things bankruptcy related. The Next Lawyer Up, just for fun.
That's just for fun.
You can also get more information from Michael Timberlake. Timberlake, League and Brooks, they are personal injury attorneys, so everything from car accidents to medical malpractice. 256-536-0770, 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com. And if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
It's always nice to have Sharon host the show with us.
You.
She's a family law attorney, does a great job with divorce, child custody, those types of things. Sharon Doviet at Huntsville, Alabama, 256-539-7337 or SharonFamilyLaw.com.
We got one last email question. This was from Dave. If I declare bankruptcy, would my landlord be notified? I've lived here for over 3 years, no late payments ever. I want to stay. I have 6 months left on the current lease and about to renew for another year. Is your landlord going to find out?
Well, you have to list, when you file bankruptcy, you have to disclose any leases or rent-to-owns that you have. But you have one of 2 options with a lease like that. You accept it and keep it and pay for it, or you reject it. No landlord is going to have a problem with that at all.
Yeah, as long as they're getting paid
consistently,
they're probably not going to throw you out.
That's right.
Great answers to all your questions. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next week.